All right, so good morning or good afternoon, well, to those that are here today and to those in the future watching the recording. My name is Eric Lee and I'm a Customer Success Manager in the Priority Service team in APAC. So today I'll be your host and I'm actually really excited to host my first APAC webinar. So today is how did we get here? A review of Canvas updates. So continuing on last week's theme, actually, from Hot Canvas Tips, which were hosted by Paul, this week, your Canvas Customer Success team are extremely excited to share their thoughts on the improvements to Canvas and over the last year. But most importantly, what some of the most critical implications are for teaching and learning from these changes. Now, throughout the webinar, we'll also surface some of the Canvas changes for March 2021. Now, on that note, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. So firstly, we have Constance, otherwise known as Connie. Say hello, Connie. Yeah. She's a learning consultant here in APAC. She is actually one of the most energetic team members that we have. And having worked in corporate education and NGO in Sydney, China, Amsterdam, Nepal, and the Czech Republic, with a degree in international studies, with her breadth of knowledge and experience, Connie's going to share from a further education perspective. So next we have Sue Temlett. She's been in education for 17 years with roles such as Head of English, Director of Curriculum, with a Masters of Educational Leadership and Management. Now, Sue is also a learning consultant here in APAC. Hi, Sue.
Hello.
And with her breadth of knowledge and experience, she is going to be sharing from a K-12 perspective. Now, you also notice we have a number of CSMs in today's webinar, but guest speaking will be Logan, Bala, Vijendran, previously a head of curriculum and training, educational designer, and learning strategist with the Masters in Engineering. So as a CSM for some of our largest higher educational institutions here in Australia and in Asia, Logan is going to share from a higher education perspective. Now, we also have an apology from Ian, as he is currently running one of our training sessions today, but you'll notice we also have some additional CSMs with us. We've got Adam, Paul, and Rio. And they'll be monitoring the chat today. So should you have any burning questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. Now, before we get started, please feel free and safe and brave enough to share any questions you might have into the chat. And I'm sure the PSCSMs in the chat would be happy to hear some of your favorite features as well while we work through ours. So let's get started, and I'd like to start off with Sue. We have a question for you. So what have been your favorite changes?
Sure. Well, I've got three that I'm finding it hard to find a particular winner. There's some that I think have been great changes just from usability, from the teacher point of view. And so my first one of those, if you skip on, would be that you can get to the student view from any page that you're working on now. And I think that's great for just speed of checking what you're doing, particularly if you're a sort of new user and want to check what it looks like for a student. It was a bit cumbersome before trying to always find student view. So I really like the fact that we now have that those little spectacles that you can toggle into, and then the screen will go pink around the border so that we can see what it looks like for our students really quickly. So that's one of my first faves. Next one would be confetti. So I remember getting soaked in confetti when I got married. Somebody just threw it all over me, which was, I guess, fun and maybe not fun. I felt like I was picking it out of my hair for weeks. But I do love the confetti aspect here, and I love listening to feedback of students who, like, they don't know what they're going to get. Sometimes you get a pizza coming down, sometimes you get the confetti. This one's got like windmills on it, and this screenshot here. So that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily make teaching and learning any better, but I think it just adds that little bit of joy for students when they have submitted an assignment. Most of the students I work with, that's like a few minutes before the deadline, the night before. And I think it's a nice bit of positive affirmation that they've done it. And so I like confetti for on-time submissions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Sue, you shared this with us, I believe. Like this was something that was posted in Reddit, right? And just one of those those experiences that the student says, like, read here, why is the confetti animation on Canvas after you submit an assignment my only source of dopamine and serotonin? And someone like, there's a few people with responses saying, yo, I love that confetti. Another one saying, might turn in my paper early just to feel something. And then another person saying, every time I submit an assignment, I pray to the Canvas gods that I get confetti panda. So isn't that endearing just to hear what some of the features can have impact-wise to the students that are learning?
Yeah. It's one of the things I've always loved about Canvas. It's just, although it's a great platform for teaching and learning, it's also fun. And so I just love the fun aspect. And this certainly rates high on a fun scale. I think positive affirmations always great. I think there's one more from me, and then I think, well, it's Logan's turn. Just queuing you up there, Logan. This one, I guess, probably is the most, is my most favorite in terms of what it does for students. And that's the Immersive Reader shown in a really blurred image on the screen there. But this fact that this is integrated now and turned on for pages, I just think it's fantastic, so that students who do have any particular needs can actually just use the Immersive Reader to access their course content in a really interactive way. And so I think that's probably my most significant favorite of the things that have happened over the last few months.
Okay, so out of the changes, you feel that this one has the greatest impact to teaching and learning, Sue?
Yeah, well, out of the three that I've mentioned there, yeah, I mean, I don't think it doesn't matter to a student that teachers can view student view so quickly. They have no idea about that. And the confetti is obviously just a bit of fun. But this, I think, has the greatest impact for teaching and learning, because it just means that content that may not have been particularly accessible before, particularly, I'm going to say particularly far too many times now, but especially if you have done far too, like if you've got a content page that has an awful lot of text on it, and maybe not broken up so much, I think it can be a bit overwhelming for some students. And so to be able to put Immersive Reader on and let it sort of talk to you, I think it's really valuable and will help a lot of students. So this one's probably my most valuable update for sure.
Absolutely. I was going to follow on with another question around, how would a school or a university or an organization apply these changes? But it looks like Adam's jumped onto the chat, and the trial's over. It's now part of Canvas, and all your admins can turn this feature on in the options. So we've got a question. Where does the icon appear on the page?
So it'll appear on the top right of the page once it is switched on. Yeah, I do have a demo. Happy to show you that now, or show you when I'm demoing some other things. I can just pick it up there in the demo of a bit later on, but it'll be in the top right.
Yeah, absolutely. Deborah's just reached out that she hasn't seen this before, and quite honestly, a lot of these features, we'd like to share these features with our clients whenever we can, when we jump into a call, and we'll talk a bit about how to engage with your CSM a little bit later, and how to get advice on how to enable these features and to learn about these new features. So next, I'm calling up Logan to the stage. Logan, what's your favorites?
Hey, Eric. Sue and Connie took all the really cool fun ones. So I went for two big controversial picks. Controversial because they're not super easy and it's big changes. And I think a lot of customers were really stressed about some of the changes, these two changes that I'm going to pick. I'm teasing the second one. But I think, like, for me, I picked these because I think it had a huge impact on customers. It changed, if this is your view of creating every single page, then you don't realize it changes until one small button moves, and then it can kind of throw your perspective away, and it becomes a very disruptive change. And something which, you don't really want to think about. You don't want to think about where the button is to add a link. But from our perspective, if we look at a tool and we think about how many link clicks does it take for you to do something, and we ask the big questions around how can you improve your efficiency and make something stable and a good tool that you can use in the long run, we have to disrupt your process to do that. So I think the RCE for me was a place where we could have made a lot of changes, and we did. For some people we made too many changes, but there were actually a lot more changes that we were hoping to make, and for others like Paul on this call, not enough changes have been made to the RCE. But in the last few months, I think we've really pushed through changes that should make the way a teacher, an instructor, an academic create content, post announcements to students, and students create content a lot more intuitive and a lot more powerful, right? So just making it easier for you to search for things, having that search bar, like I think welcome to 2021, that was great. Being able to directly from the RCE now have access a lot more formatting options, so you don't have to memorize little shortcuts or things or jump into the HTML. Having a fancy HTML, pretty HTML editor, oh my goodness, how much better is that? So there's lots of things around that RCE that for me, I think would make a big difference to how we build and create content in Canvas.
Well, Logan, we have an audience from a broad range of schools, institutions, and organizations. Is there anything that you recommend they should be keeping a lookout for, or something to know about?
With regards to the RCE in particular, I think there isn't one or two core things that I think you should really, think about. The tricky thing with the RCE is it was on a feature option for a long time. And then now, once it was turned on for everyone, there were lots of incremental changes that were coming through with the RCE. So it's not something that you have to push through. And because it's a kind of default in your core Canvas option, a lot of people don't think about the RCE as a learning and teaching tool. It's not something you can turn on for some and not for others. There are little tweaks that you can make around the RCE, right? So that where you're hovering over there, Eric, to favor your favorite LTI tools, you can have a strategic decision around which tools you want to add a sub-account level favorite, so that it's right there up front for academics to use. It is, I think, how the new RCE captures recorded video. It makes it accessible to teachers or in the course as a file, means that it's more viable now to just create learning content within Canvas because you have more ownership over that content, right? Previously, you record something attached to the page, but you don't actually see where that video lives. Now you can download that video, you can share it throughout the means. So from a teaching and learning perspective, I think it does empower the academic, the teacher, the student to do more native content creation. It gives you a few more options to do that.
That's interesting. Sam's also shared inside of the chat, we disable the RCE because when you insert a link, that link is always opening in a new tab, which isn't the behavior we wanted. What are your thoughts around that, Logan?
Yeah, so that shouldn't always work that way, Sam. As you can see, that screenshot that I shared, so that's with regards to how an image works. With link, so you're embedding a document, there's going to be more options now around whether you want the document to open in a new tab or an inline preview or an overlay preview. But for just links, it shouldn't always open in a new tab, right? So you should be able to get that to open on the in that course view. Go, Connie, go.
Oh, hey, I was just going to say I'm happy to do a demo on that because I think I'm demoing next, because that is actually a feature we used to actually have to right click it and choose insert inline. But now that's actually, I believe, has become a default option. So it doesn't open in a separate tab if you don't want it to, but I can show you that in my next session because I'll be in the rich content editor. Cool. But I also just wanted to share with Logan's point. I agree. I think the new rich content editor, I remember even us, when we first had to use it, we were like, no, another change. But yeah, no, I really like it. I wanted to mention a kind of random element about the new rich content editor, which is that you can now change the font. I know some people aren't so excited because it can create some inconsistencies when teachers change the fonts to something, you know, what's the word? Comic Sans. Not everyone likes Comic Sans, but I know that some of my customers were very excited about that. The fact that they could, you know, if it was a discussion and they wanted to allow students to respond and they gave them access to the rich content editor, the students could, you know, change it, you know, give their own flair with the different fonts, colors and everything. So yeah. I just wanted to share that as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Just more, simple things, more things that you could do in Word, right? Like, and of course, the first time anyone does anything in Word or PowerPoint, there will be 20 different fonts and all the different animations. After that, you pull back.
Yeah, different sizes, and they set it as headers, just like Word doc. Sometimes, you know, you would be like, oh, what's that size? Oh, it's 20 here, it's 16 here, it's 15 here. Now you've got a standardized size for different titles. So I really like that. It gives those really general formatting tools that you're used to using on Docs and Microsoft, and is now accessible in the Canvas new rich content editor.
Different fonts, different colors. And soon, one day, templates, right, Paul? One day.
One day.
One day.
All right. So on that note, let's move on to the next one. I think Logan, you still have the floor. Did you want to continue with this? And Connie, we can circle back to the RCA when.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big one. So I said two controversial ones. And I think MathJax was also controversial because it made a lot of people's lives much harder. I can see some of my customers in this call shaking their heads at me. But I think it's important. Again, it was something that was difficult to do. So for those of you who don't create lots of formulas in Canvas, and you may not be, you know what I'm talking about, but if you did, the Canvas has a pretty advanced formula editor that comes built in. And what it used to do is just produce that formula as a PNG image, which meant that, number one, you couldn't edit that image again in the future if something changed, but also, perhaps more importantly, that image was not accessible. So students couldn't, you know, screen readers wouldn't pick it up. Canvas was capturing the LaTeX code, but not producing it as text, instead producing as an image. So it was a substantial piece of work the engineering picked up and said, we need to do this, accessibility is important. But like with a lot of things, or sometimes people were using Canvas in very different ways, and we pushed it out before it was fully ready. That broke some things, and people who had LaTeX hard encoded, it didn't show up the way it actually should have showed up. We've spent a few months now on this because we need to make sure it's right and not stressful for customers, but also the reasons why we wanted to have MathJax populate everywhere as MathJax still persist, right? We want you to be able to, when you've created a formula, to be able to edit that, for students to be able to do that, and for people who are using screen readers to be able to read that. So I like this because I think it exemplified how difficult it is sometimes to do the important things. And I think we're there. We're almost there. There's some things that's still a little bit broken, to be honest, but we're still going to plug away at it. And I would have been, you know, I'd rather we did this and I'd rather we did this and didn't break as many things, but that maybe was too difficult to do. But yeah, I'm proud that we pushed through the MathJax deployment. We'll keep pushing through with MathJax. But don't ask me to demonstrate.
Yeah, quite honestly, sometimes the changes don't hit the mark, right, Logan? And I had a customer reach out and say, look, we're having a problem and it's not working. And, I had to investigate to see what was happening. And, quite honestly, these are some of the improvements that we do have to make. So I guess where can you share where our customers would be best to share their feedback to if they have issues with some of the features?
Yeah, sure, 100%. There was a really good blog post one of our product managers posted recently, actually, that just talks about life cycle of, hey, there you go, that's the one, the life cycle of a feature request. All right, where does an idea start? How does it grow through the journey it travels through the communities and the feedback and the CSMs, and then lands on the plate, on a very large plate of a product manager, and how then they take it to engineering and they talk through and where it comes to fruition finally in Canvas. And that's not the end of it, because as Sharon points out, sometimes it breaks things. We take it back, we iterate upon it, bring it back to the community. We maybe a year later decide it wasn't right, we park it. But I think that's the evolution of software. It's an organic approach. We've got customers who are using Canvas in very, very different ways, and want Canvas to change and grow and suit their needs, right? But without drastically changing and breaking their needs. So it's interesting because when you look at conversations in the community, there's always people who'll be like, don't change anything except this one thing. And then other people will be like, change everything, but just keep this one thing. So it's really difficult to do the right thing for everybody all the time. So I think it's what we can do in that process is just try to be as transparent as possible around what we're doing, why we're doing things, and then listen as carefully as possible to our customers and to our community. I mean, I think we're getting better. We've been really good at that. We're trying to get even better at that.
Thanks, Logan. That's really heartening to hear. And over the past 12 months that I've been here, I've seen dramatic improvements to the way we do product. So talking about the dramatic changes that we've been making, we've actually got a lot of changes coming through in March. So we won't go through all of them. We'll go through the Canvas March 2021 releases. And now we'll hand over the stage to Connie, who's going to be working through some of those new changes for March 2021. So yeah, Connie, go ahead.
Awesome. I might just go ahead and share my screen if that's okay, Eric. Thanks. Okay, awesome. So hi, everyone. If I haven't already met you, my name is Connie, and this release came out on the 20th of March, so very new. You will need to turn this setting on. It's called Webcam Submission. Now, when it was announced that it was a new feature, I was confused. I thought we already could do it because we already have access to our camera. We can upload photos. We can do all of this. It was just one extra thing, which is you can now just take a photo. So if you think about anyone with a MacBook and anyone who used to use, what's it called? Like iMovie, and it used to be like a photo booth style. You can essentially do that now on Canvas. That's it. But I think it's actually quite useful. So I've made an example here where I have an assignment that says, take a webcam submission. Now, this could be useful in all contexts from all different audiences and industries. In particular, I was thinking it could be useful for an RTO or further education situation where you have to take a webcam of maybe a certificate that you've received and be holding it. So the teachers, the people who are reviewing it know it's actually your certificate or something like this. Now, I was talking to another customer actually today, and we were talking about how it could actually be really good to use to analyze and assess the metacognition of the students. What I mean by that is their actual working behind the solution. So it might be a maths question, a business management question, and instead of saying, hi everyone, what is the answer to X? And they type Y. You actually get them to share their working of how they got to Y. So in this example, let's actually go through the process. I just made an assignment as I usually would. So I said, please see the attached scenario to solve. Please write your process to solve on a piece of paper, as an example, and take a webcam image of you and how you worked it out. So this could really be good for maybe art as well, practical skills, that kind of example. I'll show you what happens when I press edit. This is actually a good example for someone who asks, how do I insert it in line? So I may as well show you now. When you press edit, so I had this text, I just uploaded a PDF. Now the feature that you want to turn on so it doesn't open a new tab every time, you press it and you choose link options, and you should see it says preview inline. So I don't know if you knew you could do that, or you can expand the preview by default. So that means the moment a student opens up this page, it could be an assignment like this one, a discussion, anything, it will automatically open for your students. So it doesn't open in a new tab, just as an FYI. If you didn't want it to automatically open, you can also choose that. And then it would just open only when you want them to see it. So if I press done, or before I do that, yeah, we'll say done. You obviously as a teacher can't see it, but when you save as, you'll see that it actually uploads. Now, the main thing I wanted to show you is the difference in order to get the webcam submission is submission type is online. Nothing surprising there. And it just, I'm going to tick all the boxes, but really you could just tick media recordings and file uploads, and you'll see what happens. Okay, all of this stuff, you know how to do it, save as. Okay, so then I'm going to quickly pop into student view just to show you. Now, anyone who's done one of my trainings and so Sue also knows, I like to say think pink when you're thinking as a student. Always, I like to really recommend this. Always when you're creating assignments, trying out a new feature, you always want to see what your students are going to experience. Otherwise, you don't know if it's really working. So think pink, go into student view, and I can see if I click this, it won't open up a new tab, it'll open up a PDF. But again, if I wanted it just to show up before, you just right click it as a teacher and tick that little box. But anyways, so you keep scrolling down. Now, as a student, I need to submit this assignment, and all that's really different is I have this option, use webcam. What that means is if I press it, it asks for access, I do, oh, you can see my background. And you can see here, like I could say, this is my working to get my answer for, this is the proof of my metacognition. So I could go ahead, now this could be anything, could be a certificate, could be my painting behind there. If I wanted to show a teacher my painting. Is that in the chat, Adam talking about my blank background? Yeah, yes, exactly, my books were stolen. Yeah, so you could go ahead and take a photo of your work. So I'm trying to block my, okay. And use this photo. And then that's my submission there. So you didn't used to be able to do that. Before you could just upload a file of, you could have taken a photo on your phone and then saved it. But this is just one less step. Make it easy for your students. Here is my working examples. Submit the assignment. Confetti, let it rain. And that's it. So then quickly, I just show you if I leave student view, I'll show you the speed grader as a teacher. So you can, that's it. Now, I mean, look, it's not the clearest of photos, so maybe tell your students to use a marker if they're doing it, but it's more an example of paintings and that kind of certificate if you need proof of that for further education, RTO examples. But yeah, so that is webcam submission. Any questions about that?
That's huge. That's amazing. Connie, we do have a question. Does it work with Respondus Monitor?
That one, to be honest, I'm not too sure. I'm sorry. I imagine it would because it's just having access to your computer, to your camera. So it should work just like Respondus. When you're using Respondus, it would be any assignment submission should still work because it's just files. Yeah. And yes, good point, Sue. So you can also annotate. So if I'm the teacher, I could be like, that's not right. What is going on here? I could also go ahead and say, can you check this working? I can't highlight because it's not actual text, but I could definitely go ahead and box things. There you go. Please review. So your students could definitely see those elements. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, I knew Adam made a joke. Excuse me, I used to actually be a very fast runner in primary school. Okay, great. No other questions. Do you want me to move to the next example? Do you want me to let you share the screen? It doesn't really say much, it just says.
No, so yeah, the next one is module support for new quizzes.
Okay, so this one I am really excited about because anyone, yes, it is a feature, Parissa. Yes, a new feature that you should be able to see when you go into your, it's the settings, yeah, just feature options. Yeah, but it's new assignments. You'll have to create new assignments. Eventually we'll move to all your existing assignments that have add image option. But at this moment, for example, I had to create a new assignment after the 20th of March for this to be an option. So just keep that in mind. Okay, yes, so talking about new quizzes, this one I actually am genuinely excited about when I saw it, because if anyone has been on the new quizzes train, you know, it's not too dissimilar to the Max Jacks experience. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was questionable and caused more, you know, conversation, but that's fine. Everything's a teething process. But the reason I really like bumpy train, that's a lovely way to say that, Sue. Exactly. So I'm going to actually minimize this. I'm actually going to go into a different example to show you this for my RTO friends. We've just got some examples of Cert 4s and different units of competencies. So I just wanted to show you here, if I'm going to go into a new course, and in this one, I have quizzes. The first thing, this actually isn't it appearing in modules. I want to take a step back because this was released early this year, and I don't think many people knew about it. So I'm going to quickly show you this as well, which is that you can migrate your existing classic quizzes into a new quiz. Canvas will do that for you. So I just want to show you how you quickly do that. You just go into where it says quizzes here. So you find your quizzes. And so I've got an example. I've got a week 1 quiz, and you can see by the icon here, this is a classic quiz. This is the new quiz. People used to say, what's the point of me doing a classic quiz if it's just going to have to turn into a new quiz end of next year? Well, now you can actually, if I can't use it next year, well, you can still definitely migrate your classic quizzes to new quizzes starting from now this year. So in case you didn't know, I'm going to just show you week 1 quiz. And all you choose is these little 3 buttons, okay, the little 3 dots. Vertical ellipsis apparently is the technical name. And then what you can do is press this button here that says migrate. And you're migrating a classic quiz to a new quiz. Da-da-da. Yeah, I know, Sue calls it the kebab menu. Skinny snowman is what Ian calls it. There you go. And then Markshade, by default, a course copy moves classic quizzes to new quizzes. So it already will migrate it, correct. But if you're in a course that already has classic quizzes and you want to update it internally on that course, definitely you can just migrate it like this. And then you can see here, so now I have still as a classic version, and now I also have it as the new feature, new quiz feature. So that's firstly what you can do to migrate within a course. You can definitely, you can now copy over your courses and they'll already do it as a new quiz. And it's, all those elements here. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and show you is if I go into modules now, previously, if you've noticed, you would only be able to create place a quiz in here through assignments, because technically new quizzes is an LTI, so it's synced with assignments. And so you have to go through assignments, and then you used to have to go ahead and find it. You would actually see new quizzes here. Now, as of March 20th, you can actually go ahead and choose quizzes. And you can actually go ahead and you can create a brand new quiz. Like this one, you can obviously do the week 1. I don't know if you can see it. So I've got week 1 classic, and then I also just have the week 1 quiz. It doesn't say classic, it's just because it's the new, it's going to be the standard. So this is the new version. So I can actually bring it across here. Okay, and then so you can see it's a new quiz like this. So you can bring it across through there. You can also create brand new quizzes straight in here. So I can go ahead and press plus. I want to make a brand new quiz. Now I have this option. New quizzes is the default now, okay? Or you can say, I want to make a classic quiz. So you can see we're slowly trying to get people to accept this as the norm. So there's classic quizzes. I'm going to choose new quiz and I'll call it new quiz example. And you can now see that I've got a new quiz example. When I go into it, yeah, I won't go through a whole demo of how to make a new quiz. But yeah, that was not an option before last month. You had to go ahead, make a new quiz first in assignments, and then bring it across into your modules. Now there's just the wonderful option of going into a module, going plus, and plus quiz. And then you can go ahead and create a new one. And that's it. So that's some new features, just makes things so much easier. And if you've attended any of our trainings, you know that we always recommend module-centric content management. So it's always good to create your content straight from a module. And now you can do so with new quizzes. So that's it. That's from me. Any questions, let me know.
No, that's amazing. The amount of time it's going to save on the administrative load for administrators. Now, speaking of administrators, we have, I'm going to throw the mic back to Logan because one of his favorite ones actually, that he was going to share as his favorite, which actually fell under the March 2021 release, was granular permissions. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Logan again, just to explain this new feature for this month.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's been a popular request from the university sector, where we have many different people who are playing different roles in a course. But I think this also applies in the RTO and school space, where you may have someone who's creating content, but or updating content, but not necessarily having to create content, right? So from this month, and if you go to the next slide, Eric, there'll be a little display on how the changes they were making and how that will look like now in the permissions page. So whereas previously you just had the permission to say someone can edit a page or edit, manage, create a page, now you can actually break that down and say this person can add people but not remove, or someone else can remove but not add. Someone can create a page but not delete a page, or create a page or not create a page but update a page, right? So it just gives you a lot more control. And this is part of a broader trend within Instructure to give you more granularity and in the permission setting. So we did that, I think, last year, a few releases ago, around sections. Now it's around usage rights. And then in a few other areas down the track, we're looking at where we can offer you more control with how you are giving people power. So you can give them more power or just the right amount of power which they need. Not too much, not too little.
Yeah, power, you have to be really careful. So Logan, where do you suggest that people, if they wanted to try this thing, what do you suggest they should do? Or what should they think about as well?
Most institutions, you would have a kind of a matrix on the different roles and what those roles are allowed to do within your organization, and design canvas around what people need to do rather than design what people need to do around what Canvas allows them to do. That's a little bit of a dance, but we're trying to, by giving this more granularity, give more power to you so that you can use Canvas to better reflect your processes rather than redesign your processes. I would not encourage creating too many custom roles, right? So I would say still this doesn't mean you have like 30 or 40 different roles and have really granular differentiated permissions for different individuals, because in the long run, you will still need to manage as those roles grow and new permissions are added to those roles. There can be some evolution and some creep and some drift, and then you'll need to go back and audit and edit them. So this should just give you more ways to fine tune what an existing role can or cannot do. Right? So if you had a TA role or a designer role, and you didn't really want designers in the past to be able to delete a page, but to be able to add pages because you just want them to remove things, then now you have the ability to do that. So I would say start by tweaking and adjusting your existing roles rather than you seeing this as an opportunity to create really granular differentiated roles, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Great tips, Logan. So now I'm going to call back Sue because she's been really vocal about this and how excited she is about this. So Sue, we're going to go through some of the new K-6 changes. So I'll throw it over to you, Sue, to explain some of the changes for March and what they mean and what the implications are for teaching and learning.
Sure. I might share my screen if that's all right. And just take over that. Let me just go to present mode. Okay. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to this. So hopefully there are some people on the call who are in K-12 or in K-6, depending on whether you're a primary or K-12. But I think for a long time, there has been discussion around making Canvas a better experience for our young learners. And, rightly so, I think. Canvas obviously came from a sort of tertiary background. It's molding more and more into the 7 to 12 space. But now to get it into the primary space, I think as we went through COVID and through learning at home last year, there was a lot done in that space to understand what it is that young learners need. And now we have some very interesting and exciting releases coming out around a project called K5, which is just really the American language essentially. But now we sort of rebranded it to K6 or P6, depending on where you are in Australia, but just kind of encompass those sort of changes for our market. Now, what I'm going to show you is a series of screenshots from a video that we are going to provide you a link to, where there's a sort of 40-minute webinar with the product manager who is responsible for these changes. And so I'm just going to give you a series of screenshots from that video, and then I think the link will come a bit later in the resources that we put on our page where this webinar is shared. But essentially, one of the K5 big things is to actually reduce noise. You'll hear it like a buzzword said endlessly through any webinar or discussion on this new K5 experience. And by reduce noise, what they're not just meaning like streamline the navigation, it's actually like remove a lot of the navigation. And so the navigation, the whole experience for a student is going to work very differently. So let me just take you to, this is a shot of the new dashboard essentially. And so I'll just take you into one of my areas that I have got with this new dashboard switched on. I haven't got the kindy, sort of courses, the K-6 courses here, but you can see even just from this new sort of dashboard within my instance here, the font's different. It's a bit more sort of primary aimed. You can see that the noise around a subject card. So first of all, they're calling it My Subjects, and this is your homeroom instead of the dashboard. You can actually edit this homeroom space. I haven't done it here, but on this screenshot, where is it? This one. On this screen here, you can see that there is actually a homeroom space that the teacher can actually post notifications to, post little videos to, that sort of thing. Really acknowledging that these learners have a centralized room, and so the virtual space should actually mimic that as well. So the dashboard becomes this centralized homeroom space, and then the subjects themselves become little cards within that. So rather than courses, we switch to subjects. So my subjects: maths, science, language, arts, etc. So that's that idea of font and reducing noise. Usually in one of our course cards here, you would see other icons like whether there's an assignment, a discussion, that sort of thing. That all of that noise has gone. So it's really about streamlining. And so that our young learners don't have more things to press on than what they need. Also in this screenshot, you'll notice that there's an importance dates section. So rather than a to-do list, it's sort of like just flagging these are when things are happening or due, you know, rather than lots and lots being due. Again, just trying to push back on the amount of sort of things that young learners have to read. Now, I haven't got this one built out, but from the homeroom tab, then you can press on schedule. So just showing you what this looks like when you watch the video at a later date, those of you who are K6. Here, the schedule would be looking at, you know, a typical day in the life of a student. This is obviously built, the one on screen now is built very much for home learning. You can see the join the Zooms links, that sort of thing. So, you know, as we know, our colleagues in the States are still very much learning at home. And so most of their learning is done remote still. So there's, you know, building in Zoom links, having that synchronous time with the students has become something within that schedule that you can kind of mimic a school day. So the schedule itself is meant to be, imagine yourself as a K-6 teacher standing at the front, you're writing on the board and you've written, you know, today we're doing maths, English and art, you know, or we've got a library visit or whatever it is that you're doing with your particular grade. And so the schedule's reflective of that, essentially. The grade section becomes very streamlined. The video will give you a bit more on that. And then the resources are sort of key links, key areas that students can press on that are just really important or pertinent to them. If we go into one of these courses, so let's assume we had just pressed on maths. Again, the noise has been reduced. So we don't see a great big course menu. All we see is literally what's on today. You know, a very simple kind of what's on today, little ticker box if you've done it, you know, what's on tomorrow, what's on the next day. So really keeping it just super simple. This is what has to happen, essentially. And yeah, that would look like, so when you've got, this one's a lot crisper, obviously. When you've got these things built out, they'll be able to view the schedule from here, the marks, the resources, etc. And the courses will look very differently when you have all of this switched on. Now, there's going to be obviously questions around how to do this. There are some little, what should we say, tweaks and little things to do to get it switched on. It's not super simple right yet. And the reason being that it is still very much in beta. So it's still something that is being demoed. It's still something that we have a user group on the go to actually give feedback about. And so if I just switch my screen to this handout, this will also be shared with you. And this is from our counterparts in America. And there is a whole heap of things here for where you can join Canvas for Elementary. There is a community group that you can join and find out some information. You can, you know, put your inputs into things where you would still like to see additional changes, that sort of thing. We're still talking over here about how we would like language changed a little bit for the APAC releases. So there should be a language pack a bit different around that, just like in our normal Canvas pages. And here we just have a list of questions. So I've already seen people saying there, can we do it by sub-account? We don't want to have the whole secondary school having that cute writing. So definitely, yeah, you can turn it on by sub-account. We definitely see here people who have turned it on for the whole site by accident. And so, you know, this handout is really, really good for you to read. It's 7 pages long, unfortunately, but lots and lots of Q&A that people are asking about. So yeah, really excited about this. I have, as Eric said, made a lot of noise in this space because there was far too much noise in this space for our young learners, and now I'm really excited to see what is going to be possible for them. I'll stop my share.
Yeah, I'm really excited by that change too, Sue, because I think it's super relevant for younger learners, but also for other learners and other organizations that want to present maybe a thematic view of content. You know, I know in higher ed, especially, that for a long time I get questions around, can I just present program view of content, right? Like, this is the Bachelor of Arts, or this is the diploma that you're doing, and this could be an opportunity if that content is structured within a specific sub account and students are taking courses there to present the content in that view.
Yeah.
So things that will come down the line, but I think it's really exciting that we've looked at how we can simplify and organize content in a different view, just to kind of improve that student experience.
Yeah, it recognises horses for courses, essentially. You know, we can't have K-6 operating in the same way that we would expect our older learners or adult learners. So yeah, 100% behind that new initiative.
Yeah, I'm really excited by those changes as well. Like being a primary parent as well. It looks very, very cool to me. So for everyone on the call today, you would have learned a lot of the new features that have excited us over the last 12 months and in the coming months as well. So there's a few things that we'd like for you to take away. And let me just share my screen. So the first thing that we'd like to encourage you to do is bookmark our Canvas roadmap page. This is the place to learn about a few things, is to learn about the feature cycle, the life cycle, get product insights, participate in feature ID conversations, provide feedback about the better features that Sue mentioned a little bit earlier, and also view details of recent releases. But most importantly, and I'll circle back to what Logan shared a little bit earlier, is to understand how a feature ID gets on the roadmap and the product process, because this is a really great place to understand where the features come from and the journey it takes to being in the roadmap and the product process. And it's to build awareness that it's not just a decision by a single engineer. So that comes to the conclusion of our webinar. And I'd like to thank Connie, Sue, and Logan for joining us as guest speakers, Adam, Paul, and Rio in the chat. And for all of our viewers here today and in the future, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. And I hope you were able to take away some key findings away from today's webinar. So if you do have any questions, please let us know if you'd like to understand how you would apply some of the recent changes to Canvas for your school, institution, or your organization. So please don't feel, please don't hesitate to reach out to your customer success manager or managers using the CS Team APAC at instruction email. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or evening. It was a pleasure to be your host today, and we hope to see you in the next one.